The countdown continues to next week's announcement of a running mate for Vice President Kamala Harris, and speculation is swirling around a number of expected shortlist candidates ahead of a cross-country tour of seven battleground states. Among those making headlines, Governors Andy Beshear and Josh Shapiro and Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg. There are reports that the three have made sudden schedule changes this weekend. So for more on all of this, let's bring in our political panel for this Friday. CBS News political contributor and chief communications officer for Move On, Joel Payne, and CBS News political analyst and GOP strategist, Leslie Sanchez. Great to see you guys. Joel, I am not going to ask you to make a prediction, but I'm going to ask you to answer a question that's probably make you more uncomfortable. Who do you think would be the best running mate for Harris?
Oh, boy, I think I'd prefer the prediction question.
No.
Look, here's the good thing about all of these folks that it's apparent that Vice President Harris is considering. They all bring different strengths to the table, some geographic, some constituency-based, some temperament-based. And I think none of them, at least from the public reporting and the bit of research I've done, create the liability for Vice President Harris that J.D. Vance has created for Donald Trump. I don't think you're going to look back and see any of them talking about childless cat ladies. I don't think you're going to see any of them talking about monitoring pregnancies. These are all standard down the line Democrats who are going to bring a different look and feel to the ticket and are going to be folks that complement Vice President Harris. And every Democrat who I am talking to, there are no bad choices. There are some choices that some folks feel are better for one reason or another, but there are no choices here that give anyone heartburn. And I think that is very relieving for many of the Democrats I'm talking to.
So, Leslie, I do want to talk to you about J.D. Vance's performance. But before I do that, I want to sort of ask you a similar question, which is, which of these candidates do you think pose perhaps the strongest threat to the Trump Vance ticket?
Well, it's interesting. I think the biggest name you hear right now is Governor Shapiro from Pennsylvania. It's also the biggest challenge you hear because you have Women's Defense League saying that there are some things in his background that give them concern, a sexual harassment issue. He's pro-Israel. Not that Women's Defense Fund is concerned about that, but there are challenges on both sides of the aisle. I almost feel like Democrats are, and what Republicans hope they are sometimes, where they could pick all of that rolled into one. That ideal candidate does not exist. And Pennsylvania, particularly, going back to that, the reason we hear so much about it is because half of that vote, especially in the northeast part of that state, is working class voters that Trump has made tremendous inroads on. And when you're talking about swing voters in all of the states that you're going to see her potential VP and Kamala Harris go to try to present in front of. So the challenges are very real, but it's these particular sets of voters that are really keen on hearing what the balance or the moderate voice of a ticket might look like.
I know you all heard what Donald Trump had to say at the NABJ convention, particularly when he was asked about J.D. Vance. And he sort of said, VP picks really don't have that much of an impact. I want to play a little bit of his sound.
Historically, the choice of a vice president makes no difference. You're voting for the president, and you can have a vice president who's outstanding in every way, and I think J.D. is. I think that all of them would have been, but you're not voting that way. You're voting for the president. You're voting for me. If you like me, I'm going to win. If you don't like me, I'm not going to win.
So I know he was sort of heavily criticized for that answer, but I do think there is something to that. And I wonder if the research indicates that a vice presidential pick has that much influence, whether they come from a battleground state or whether they come from a desired demographic. Joel, I kind of want you to react to that. How much of a difference does the VP pick make?
Well, so it depends on what you mean when you say make a difference, right? Are people voting, like going to a voting booth per se and saying, I am actively voting for person X to be my vice president? No, but they are voting for a ticket and they are voting for a package. Look at Barack Obama in 2008. He picked Joe Biden to round out his coalition, to ease concerns about him being relatively new to the national scene. And that worked, right? That added someone with heft and credentials inside the Beltway that allowed Barack Obama to create a broader coalition. Donald Trump, who everyone knows I'm not a fan of, did the same thing with Mike Pence. in 2016. He created a broader coalition by finding somebody that allowed him to appeal to a broader subsection of Republican voters. So no, the folks did not actively vote for Mike Pence or Joe Biden in those scenarios, but they were voting for a package and for an offering together. And I think that that's what Vice President Harris is going to be considering. I do think that's what Donald Trump was thinking about with J.D. Vance. It's pretty clear that he was going for more white voters, going for more younger, the Joe Rogan style voter out there. And it seems like the gambit that's not going to work out for Donald Trump. But I think that's what he and his campaign were trying to do. And I think Vice President Harris is going to be looking for someone that can allow her to put together a broad winning coalition.
You know, Leslie, I heard an excellent interview with a couple of professors, quickly trying to look them up, Kyle Kopko and Christopher Kyle, I believe that's the names. They wrote a book entitled Do Running Mates Matter? And one of the conclusions that they came to was that the voters certainly do judge the candidate based for their running mate pick, because this is the first big decision that the candidate is making. And here we have J.D. Vance, who has hit the ground stumbling. If a VP pick doesn't make a huge difference in a positive way, can they do a lot of damage? And what's your take on what's happening with J.D. Vance now?
Anne-Marie, I think you make a really important point relative to that. The J.D. Vance launch has been miserable for many Republicans, and particularly Republican women. I cannot tell you how many women I've spoken to in swing states, particularly purple states, that are really concerned and turned off by a lot of the language of things that he has said in the past. And for Republicans, it's been a lot of cleanup, a lot of tremendous coalition building behind the scenes, and a lot of money going into kind of building an understanding of what this ticket looks like and what the priorities are and what the balance is. I would also, Joel talked about 2008. Sarah Palin went on the ticket as an historic move to put somebody to counter the historic nature of President Barack Obama. They put up the first woman you hadn't seen since Walter Mondale had done that with Ferrara in 24 years prior. It changes the dynamic of the race, and in such a short period of time as they're racing to the election cycle, it's what voters are looking for, is this balance. I will say Palin, there were more people researching Palin when she was announced in 2008 than they were the top of the ticket. But that quickly fell apart after she did a series of sit-down interviews that were disastrous, right? So that does distract from the ticket, and it can happen on both sides of the aisle.
Leslie and Joel, thank you very much. You guys have a great weekend.